What's going on, everyone? This past week, I took a trade on Google and I wanted to share with you guys my full breakdown and in depth of what was going through my brain and why I took this trade. So let's get right into it. This past week, I put out a tweet on Google, right? On January 9th, I said, "This is interesting. We're still in a current range while other names broke out of their range. We have relative weakness off the open because that's usually when I'm watching the charts. And these are my zones below. So we have these zones listed out. We see that every time we get to this 89, 99, this 90 psych level, we come straight back down and then we have dip ads at 85.91, so that 86 area. And I have it on the charts right here, and you see a clear picture of what is going on. Every time we come down here, we move right back up. Every time we come to this area, we come right back down. And we did eventually break out towards the end of the week. But let's focus on the day that I took this trade. So I took this trade on January 10th, Tuesday, at about 9:49, 9:50 a.m. So let's go into the lower time frame. I trade on the 15. So this is what I was looking at coming into this day, right? This right here is January 10th. And the day before, we went straight into that supply zone and we rejected hard. That would have been a great trade, right? We rejected hard, came about from 90 all the way down to 87.87 at the close, and that would have been a great short trade off of that supply zone. But I didn't trade that. Coming into today, on pre-market, we flushed hard. We're all the way down here into this demand level that I have marked out, and I'm waiting to see if there's an opportunity to take this to the long side off this strong demand zone that's been holding, right? We came here two times, three times prior. We came over here, got a huge dip add up, came over here, we came back up, came over here, and came back up, and now we're here. I'm watching. Do we get out of here quick and move to the upside? So it's about 9:49 a.m. where I took this trade, and my A plus setup is there a uptrend downtrend break, and is there a strong demand or supply zone? This is a strong demand zone. We've seen that from the times prior. And is there an uptrend downtrend break? We were currently in a downtrend on a shorter time frame, right? For the last half of the day prior into today through pre-market, we're in downtrend. So I want to see that downtrend break. We get that confirmation right here. Off the open, we get a huge candle up. We opened at 85.89 and then we closed this candle at 86.90. So I'm watching. On the 5, I'm watching this closely. I want to see if this area gets confirmed so I could take this to the long side. Another thing to watch is that during the morning of this trade, if we look at this side by side with SPY, we can kind of see the relative strength that we had going on. So on TradeZilla, I could put a second chart right next to this as I'm watching to see so I could show you guys what I was looking at while this trade was going on. So let's put this on the 5 minute to get a much lower time frame. I use the 15 to take trades, but I use the 5 to get a more sniper ad off of what's going on. So let's play this. I want you guys to look at this side by side. So this is a replay, but Google had relative weakness off the open. And here is where I saw some of that relative strength still stick with Google, while on the overall market, we were kind of having a larger move down compared to what was going on in the charts with Google. If you look at this third candle here, the first two candles were pretty similar on the 5, right? But here we see that buyers were still a little bit in control, while on SPY, sellers took a bit more control compared to what was going on in the Google charts. You see this? This is relative strength right here. And this is where I entered because look, SPY did give back its morning gains, but buyers stepped up a bit towards the end. But Google was still very resilient compared to SPY right here. And this is where Google kind of breaks away from the overall market in terms of strength and direction. You see how SPY continues to make lower lows on the 5 after this opening candle, but Google still holds up, and now it's moving to the upside. SPY eventually regains that control and starts to move to the upside, but Google has already shown that strength on the past two candles compared to SPY. And I already took profits here mostly, but we can kind of see how Google continues to move up and it didn't give back that opening range, while SPY hit its lows of the day and then continued to move up. And that's why I kind of like trading individual names, because you could kind of compare it to the overall market and look for those strong names, those weak names, and trade them to the direction that they look like they want to go in. And relative strength and relative weakness aren't rocket science. It's just basically you want to see how the candles are moving relative to one another. If SPY is moving down, but you see Google holding up very well compared to it, then that's relative strength in itself. So yeah, let's move into here. I entered on this fourth 5 minute candle. We held up comparatively well to SPY, and we were in a strong demand zone. So my stop was 39 on the contracts. I bought these contracts at $50. And the reason why I put my stop at 39 was because that would have been if we broke through that demand zone, which was at the low of these. So you can see that on the contracts, you can see the prices here. The low of the contracts a few minutes after I took it was about 40, 45. So I put my stop right under it. I didn't set a stop on my contracts. I just had a mental stop on the contract prices and on the charts of the underlying stock price. So my stop would have been like probably right under the zone. And my target was my initial target. I had this marked out previously, but it would have been right here, because look at how we kind of bounce up, come back down. We reach this area usually, and this was a previous support yesterday, the day before I took this trade, and we did end up reaching this target, but I did not hold it all the way through as much as I would have liked. So let's see what I actually did. I took 16 contracts at $50 for an adjusted cost of $800, and my initial target for the contract prices was $72. So I had a profit target of $352, and I was planning to risk $176 on the contracts to get to that target. My stop loss was 39, so that's where all this comes from. And I had a real planned multiple of two, but I realized one. So we'll get to that. You can kind of see my mistake right here and what I did. So we see that on the underlying stock price, I entered right here after these two confirmations to kind of see that relative strength come in off this strong demand zones. So we have two things marked off on our A plus setup checklist. We have our strong demand zone. We have an uptrend downtrend break, right? We were in a downtrend and we broke up and we broke that downtrend. And we had our trade planned out for a 2R trade check. And then we had another confluence point, which was relative strength off the open. So that's an A plus setup checklist for me. And that's why we see this trade is an A plus setup 10 times out of 10. We had the setup was a demand zone long, and we had everything marked off. And now that we have all that out of the way, let's take a look and go in depth of what I actually did throughout the trade, what was going on in my head, and why I did the things that I did during this trade. This is an A plus setup, and I take the trade, I enter right here. And right off the bat, next 5 minute candle, we get a huge move up. And on this trade, I was looking at the 5 minute too much, which I realized, because in hindsight, I could have held this trade much longer if I was just looking at the 15 minute. Because initially we did hit my target, right? 87, 86, I had this level marked out. We did hit my target, but I got shaken out and I could have held this trade much longer and eventually actually hit my target, which was $72 on the contract prices, which hit at 10:05, and they had a high of about $1. So I did leave a lot of money on the table, which happens, but I'm happy to get a chunk of the move. And to give you guys a little background on the market environment and what my brain was thinking going into today. We had a lot of data coming out. I can't name all of them. There's just so much data always coming out, like PMI, whatever. So we had CPI Thursday, and I was in the mindset that I'm gonna take my base hits and I'm gonna get out and I'm gonna have consistent hits and just call it a day. So that's basically what I did on this trade. But in hindsight, I could have held this trade much longer and did leave a lot of money on the table. And one thing to note is I was looking at the 5 minute too much when I usually trade on the 15 minute. If we look at the 15, looking at the 15, this was a smooth trade. I could have held it until the close of this or until this right here, and I still would have been basically around the same. But through my scale outs, I would have locked in a lot more gains. If you look at the 15 minute, this was a smooth trade, right? Three straight candles up, no signs of letting off. On the 5 minute, I got shaken out. Right here, we did hit my target, but on this candle, I did not like it very much. It was a low volume red candle, and I should have just like stuck with it. But I had a stop at 62, which was too close of a stop. But I was very conservative going into today, and I took the rest of my position off. I locked in about $192 worth of gains, a 25% return. My R multiple could have been much better if you look at the contracts. They went to a high of 1. If I waited just another few more minutes, if I waited just 5 more minutes, I could have gotten my target and much more. We went to 87, 90. But yeah, I'm pretty much happy with my trade. I'll give this a 4 because it was an A plus setup. I had my demand zone marked out. I had my trade planned out with my target, my stop loss. I had another confluence point through relative strength, and we did break the downtrend going to the uptrend on a strong demand zone, and we hit my target. So this was a pretty good trade, but I could have held it longer. If you look at here, since I entered, I had a maximum profit of 252, and the maximum loss that I saw was 16. You can look at the running P&L. We did go down a little bit right off entering, but since then we were pretty much in the green the entire time. So yeah, that was my trade recap on trading Google to the upside. Locked in a 25% return, made $192 on the trade, A plus setup. I hope you guys were able to take some type of value from watching me go about this trade breakdown and an in-depth of what I was thinking, what I did, and how I went about trading this. I hope you guys enjoyed. Until next time.